So Joe, I've got a lot of questions recently,
Okay.
and I think it begs some expert advice, right? So I've had people come up to me, they're hardworking,
Mm-hmm.
Two parents working in the household. They've been saving money. They've been doing what they believe is the right thing.
Yeah.
And they're questioning it.
Mm-hmm.
What's the problem? Why are people questioning that?
Well, I think they question it when you start to dive into how the system works. You start to feel like if you do the right things, you have to pay more for college. And, a lot of the families that I meet with are exactly who you're mentioning. It's that two parents, they're trying to do everything they can for their kids. They make good income, they make decent money. And then they look at this rising price of college and then they say, okay, wait, you're going to have to justify what I pay for my kids' education based on what we earn and what we've saved.
Yeah.
And we might pay more. And I think some people feel frustrated with it. I think they get upset when they learn how the process works. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, it ends up being the fear of now they can't do enough. They thought they were doing enough, and they start to realize, okay, we're not going to be able to do this.
Got it. So in that fear and all that, why is it such a big problem right now? Like, what is causing it?
Well, the cost of school is just skyrocketed over the years. And so, parents try to save. You have life, life happens. Not everybody can put a ton of money away when the kids are real young. They hear things like, hey, use a 529. And now their kids are a year away from college and they realize there's maybe a year worth of tuition in there. And so it becomes such a problem because the cost has gone up. What families are going to have to pay increases. And then they realize that, well, how is this going to affect the rest of our financial world? Can we retire when we want? We always wanted to buy that vacation and we wanted to go on the Disney vacation. And now all of a sudden it's the things that people really wanted to accomplish, they just flat out can't. And it slaps them in the face when they start to realize what is real because they thought it was something else years prior.
So, in essence, it just gets worse. Right?
It gets so much worse because you can start doing things that you think are right. Mm-hmm. And if you start doing things 15 years ago, okay, great, you start early. But if you do those things wrong, detrimental effects for college.
Got it.
If you don't find out that you've been going down the wrong path until your kid's a sophomore or a junior in high school, it's almost too late to potentially fix some of those things. So as you start to learn things and you start to talk to different people, advisors or, college experts like us, there's going to be different views on how to use things. And if you do things wrong at the beginning, now all of a sudden you pay more for college. Now all of a sudden retirement is no longer achievable, right? You might be working until you're 75, right? You may have to borrow loans. When can those loans pay off? Or the big fear that these working parents is, they had loans themselves and they don't want their kids to be in that same, not able to start off their adult life. And if you don't do it that's exactly what ends up happening.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the old quote, the quality of a good financial plan is never known until 25 years after it's been created. So same kind of microcosm in the college world. You start when your child's born and, all of a sudden they're 18. It's 18 years of marination in there.
Yeah.
So so ultimately, if you solve this problem or you address it properly, how much better does it make life?
Well, if you can pay less for college, right, you have a solution to not only know, hey, what am I going to have to pay? Mm-hmm. You know what your budget is, what you can afford. But then you're able to bring schools into that budget that you might have thought were unaffordable. Mm-hmm. So now all of a sudden, as a family, you don't feel as you've done a failure as a parent, where if your child wants to go to a school their whole life, the answer is you can't go there because we can't afford it. So it can make some opportunities available for your child from an emotional standpoint. From the backside, on the financial standpoint, if you don't overpay for college, that's less money that potentially has to be borrowed, doesn't push off retirement. Mm-hmm. You're not living month to month feeling like with the burden and trying to go to sleep every night saying, how are we going to do that? That bill's a year away. That bill's 2 years away. How are we going to do this? Having that solution set in stone and doing it the right way, it really helps not just mom and dad, not just the student, but now you're talking about grandkids. You're talking about great grandkids. You're talking about generational wealth that can be created when you do this properly. plan the right way for college, it's without a doubt has a positive effect on retirement and years down the road, even beyond that.
So you as a college planning expert at Elite Collegiate Planning, how do you help families? And tell me a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, I think the first thing that I really try to serve my clients is to educate first. If you don't know how the system works and you go into this blind, that's the first mistake most people do. And it is eye-opening when I teach these lessons to families. The next piece is when you take and you have a basic understanding of how financial need truly works, and you don't believe, the myths and things that you hear, is taking how the system works specifically for their situation. Every family that I meet with, I tell them there's not a right or wrong answer when it comes to what you guys want to do for college. I say every family defines help differently. Some families come to me and say, Joe, wherever my kid goes to school, I want to be able to pay 100%, no loans. Other families come to me and say, Joe, if we could do more, we will, but we want to make sure that they can get into school for the least amount. When they take some loans, it's going to be on them. We want to be able to pay it back maybe later or pay the interest while they're in school. So what I really do is first understand, almost like set the goalpost and understand what they want to do and what they're trying to accomplish from the college piece. Then move on to where you're going to be spending money after college. What do you want retirement? When do you want to retire? When you have to incorporate all those pieces, we essentially start to build a plan.
Got it.
And because everybody has different goalposts set for these different areas, there's different solutions for them. There's not a one size fits all. There's not a cookie cutter approach, even just for college. But then when you add in holistic financial planning, I have to take everybody through a systematic process so that when I end up giving advice to them, it's only for that family. I meet with 3-4 families yesterday. Every one of their plans is drastically different.
Wow.
Mainly because they all have different cash flow, different assets, different situations, looking at different schools. Right? Different ways to basically leverage certain vehicles positively and limit downsides. That doesn't work for one family the same way as it does for others.
Got it. So, I mean, in essence, it's a very customized environment.
Absolutely.
And it has to be thought of that way. So, if there's a big lesson, what is the big lesson?
I think the lesson, without a doubt, is it's our saying. It's plan early, plan early, pay less. Because the sooner you understand how the system works, and the sooner that you make sure that you're on the right path, it's a lot less likely to be, hey, I put this off, or I put my head in the sand, or I did this, but you don't realize it was wrong until you're a year away from college, and now it can't be fixed. So it is it's a complex system. And again, when you take that mom and that dad who's working hard and they're trying to do the right things, they feel awful when all of a sudden they say, oh my God, we've been doing the wrong thing our whole life. And that's when they say, I didn't know people like you existed. Everybody tells me, I wish we met you 15 years ago.
So speaking of that, how does someone, start using a solution or working with you?
Yeah, I mean, usually what I say is, again, we do seminars, we do workshops, we have videos online, our website, elitecollegiateplanning.com. Educate yourself first, right? Get a baseline of information so when someone that knows the game says, hey guys, the first thing we have to do is reduce your EFC and increase your, the ability for need-based aid, you're not looking at them like a deer in headlights. You have to understand some of this. You don't need to know how to make that possible, right? That's what an expert is going to teach you because, again, you do one thing because somebody else did it. Hey, when you do this, you lower your EFC, but they don't plan on spending that money that they're kind of fooling around with here for 20 years later, but you need it 3 years from now.
Yeah, different.
Totally different. So I think the first piece is learn a little bit about the system. That's what I love doing is the education piece, because once people know that I'm there to teach them so that they don't overpay for college, then I can start to say, okay, now this is how we use this system essentially in the best way possible for them.
So you made two comments that stuck with me. The first was right before I asked you that last question, you said, most people's reaction is, I wish I met you earlier. So are you saying that people need to start as early as possible, or like, is there a time frame on this? What's the
Earlier is always better.
Okay.
I have never met a family that has benefited by procrastinating.
Got it. So earlier.
One of the lines I use when I talk to people is, the easiest way to make paying for college impossible. You just continue to push it off.
Got it.
That's the easiest way to not make things happen, right?
Yeah.
So I think, when you educate yourself and you understand how this works, you realize, you do need to start early. And that's where take advantage of talking to someone who knows what they do. We offer free consultations to have that conversation about your specific, situation, to know, look, we can't help everybody, but there are a lot of people that we can help, and there's a lot of people that we can help that have been doing the wrong things. And if they don't fix it right away, all these bad things that we talked about, they're going to come to fruition. And that's, where I highly encourage everybody to say, look, if you don't know where to start, a little bit of education, then come talk to a professional so that you can get some advice about that specific, your picture and how it might equate, kind of bring a little bit of the future to the present. And if it's not a picture you like, hey, what are some things that potentially we can do to help those families?
So those families that do engage, and the families that they hire the professional help or they get the advice necessary, what's the feedback you get from them on how it's changed their overall approach and even their lives? So I'll say, it's funny you say this, but the gratification that I get from, just this week, I had a mom, exactly who you're describing, hardworking parents, been working hard. And she said to me, this is amazing because my kids will not have to graduate with a mountain of debt the way that me and my husband did, and worked our way out and delayed having kids because of it. They're a little bit older now. They really didn't want that for their kids. And when she said, what this will end up doing is helping my grandkids, that my daughter can now save for her daughter or son, when the time comes, that it's not money that's used trying to pay back this debt and all these loans that they've had. So to realize that there's, such not just an immediate impact, but what you can do in the short term and how positive that can have long term for these families. It truly is, like I say, that's why I love what I do. It's because this system, like teaching it and teaching people the right way and then how it applies to them and giving them solutions, it might help them save $10,000, $20,000 a year for college. That's fantastic. But what does that do 20 years from now for that family? The growth and the compounding.
It's amazing.
And the amount of money.
It's amazing what it can do for them from all aspects. And that's ultimately where I see my families, that, when we work together at the back end of this, that's where I just get ultimate gratification from, is seeing they realize, my God, what would have happened if we didn't find you? Yeah. And that's powerful. That is powerful.
So obviously you dropped the name in there a couple times, but if someone wants to engage and start learning this, where do they go and how do they get in touch?
EliteCollegiatePlanning.com. Right. It's our website. We have, again, if you're interested in attending a presentation, we have dates on there that you can attend, one of our speakers. If you want to just reach out to us and schedule that consultation, you can do it through there. We have blog posts, we have videos, we have information, right? Again, our goal is to educate people. And if all of a sudden you're reading these things, or you're watching a video, or you come to a workshop and you go, uh-oh, I didn't know that's how it worked, we might be doing things wrong, come see us.
Perfect.
But EliteCollegiatePlanning.com is where everyone can get started.
Fantastic, Joe. Thank you. It's great stuff. Again, EliteCollegiatePlanning.com.